The empty crib at 2 a.m. in their Ohio split level. The monitor woke them with a soft chime. Motion detected in nursery. The screen showed the crib neatly made, rails up. MOBA still turning, but the mattress was smooth and empty, like no one had ever lain there. No blankets bunched. No pet, just absence, framed by pale nightlight. They sprinted upstairs, heartbeats thudding in the hall. In the nursery, the baby was there, face down in sleep, warm and breathing, the pacifier at his lips, one hand curled like a seashell. Relief hit so hard it hurt. Dad laughed broken and too loud while Mom pressed a palm to her chest and whispered, "Jesus." That thing glitched. They both stared at the monitor again, needing proof they'd misread it. On the screen, crib was still empty. Dad picked up the camera from its shelf and shook it gently. To feed D&T flicker. Empty crib. No baby. He aimed the lens at his own hand and waved. The monitor showed pale rails and a blank sheet where his fingers should have been. "Fred's busted," Mom said, reaching into the crib to stroke the baby's back. The monitor showed her arm sliding between rails and touching nothing. The sheet didn't even dent. Dad's throat tightened. He pressed a finger to the baby's shoulder in the real room salad. Warm then watched the monitor show his finger pass through air that wasn't there. The crib on the screen didn't respond, like it belonged to a room 1 inch to the left of theirs. "Unplug it," Dad said. Mom lifted the plug from the outlet. The nursery light died. The monitor stayed on. Now the empty crib feed widened, as if the camera had stepped backward into a space with deeper dark. A second crib slid into view, identical wood, identical mobile, but this one was scorched along the rails, black arcs licking the lacquer. The mobile's animals hung melted and long, like taffy pulled thin. The sheet was gray, creased, as if something had thrashed there. The sound channel, dead teal now, released a thin, metallic rasp. Mom froze. Hand still, on their baby's back. "It's just a recording," she said, but her lips barely moved. On the monitor, a shape sat up in the empty crib, a slow rise under the sheet, the unmistakable weight of a small body lifting. The camera's night vision burned white where a head should be, then resolved into nothing at all. The rails rattled. The mobile spun backward. The real mobile above them started to move the same way. "Take him," Dad said, reaching into the crib. His hands met their son. Warm and real. He lifted. The baby murmured, then settled against his chest. The monitor showed Dad's arms cradling emptiness. Then, a fraction to slow, a pair of long, gray hands lifted something invisible from the scorched crib in the other feed, mimicking his motion with exaggerated care. "Go," Mom whispered. They backed to the door. In the hall, the temperature dropped like a door opening to winter. The baby's breath fogged once, then steady. As Dad reached for the light switch, the monitor blinked to a split screen. Left pane showed their nursery, perfectly tidy and empty. Right pane, the scorched room where the gray hands rocked the air, slow and patient. The baby in Dad's arms began to giggle soft, hiccuping, delighted. They both looked down, hearts cracking with relief, but the giggle wasn't coming from the child in their hands. His mouth was slack with sleep. It was coming from the monitor. The laugh continued, widening, bright as any baby's, but layered with a breathy echo, like it had a long throat to push through. The gray hands in the scorched room shifted, and for a moment the angle showed what they'd have been hiding from more hands, small and splayed, pressed flat to the mattress. Fingerprints burned into the sheet like flowers. "Front door," Dad said, voice shredded. They fled downstairs. Baby Klooch had keys and diaper bag grabbed in blind sweeps. As they yanked the door open, the monitor still in Mom's grip, still unplugged, showed the nursery one last time. Now, the crib wasn't empty. Something was standing in it, tall enough to shadow the ceiling, head bent by the rails, fingertips hooked over. Watching them go, its chest rose and fell with the baby's laugh, timed perfectly, like it was practicing. They sprinted to the car, buckled the baby, peeled out. The monitor, tossed on the passenger seat, kept streaming the nursery, placid, and unoccupied again. They didn't look back until they hit the end of the street. Only then did the baby finally walk eyes wide, focused past them. Not quite on the men to reach out both hands. Not toward Mom, not toward Dad, but toward the humming screen, like recognizing a familiar room. The monitor chimed. Motion detected in nursery. At 2:01 a.m. The moving shadow in Michigan's February dark. Owen stood in his bedroom, breath fogging the window, watching the streetlight carve his shadow onto the wall. Ailed steel because that's what the game demanded. Don't move. Don't blink. Don't breathe too loud. His shadow scratched the wallpaper. Just a fingertip at first, one flat. Black finger lifting away from his silhouette and dragging down, slow as a razor, through ice. Owen didn't move. He couldn't. He felt the drag in his skin anyway. A phantom itch he couldn't reach. Mum's footsteps thumped down the hall. The shadow's head turned, not his, its profile tilted toward the door, mouth opening wider than his could, a long, pepper-thin smile, splitting across flat darkness. "Owen?" Mom called. "Lights out." He didn't answer. The shadow nodded for him. "Good night," his voice said from the wall. Owen's throat stayed shut. The door clicked. His room shrank. The shadow lifted its left arm. Owen's stayed at his side, the black hand pressed against the seam where his closet met the wall, pushing until the paint puckered and the line gaped like lips. Cold air seeped out dead leaves and pennies. From inside the closet, something whispered back in the exact voice he used when he lied. "Let me." Owen stared at his own feet. They weren't moving, but on the wall, his shadow stepped forward, one foot sliding out of his outline. The light didn't change. The night didn't shift. Only the flat black peeled, like a sticker that remembered it used to be a door. He thought, if I run, it follows. If I scream, it copies. If he touch it, the shadow reached him first. It pressed its palm flat over his chest, and his heartbeat thumped against paint. For a second, Owen felt himself turning thin, thinning, until the wall felt thick and he felt flat. He blinked, and the room snapped wrong. Depth traded places. He was on the wall, glossy and pinned. The boy in the room stood where he had stood, breathing his breath, wearing his face. "Don't be scared," the boy said, perfectly still. "It's your turn to keep watch." Then the lights went out with a soft click. In the dark, Owen's eyes adjusted faster than they should have. He saw everything the way shadows do. Edges first. He watched the new Owen climb into his bed, pull up his covers, and sleep in his life. On the wall, something behind him opened the closet from the inside. A hand pressed through the seam, hunting for whoever stayed still longest. The spare key, she lost her house key somewhere between the grocery store and the dusty Nevada sidewalk. Shrugged it off, and switched to the keypad for a week without thinking twice. Every night, the desert cooled, cicadas buzzed, and the code lights blinked their quiet green. On the 8th night, the turn-wrench click of a tumbling lock woke her metal on metal, a careful hand she didn't recognize. She froze. The keypad didn't make that sound. The deadbolt did. Footsteps patted in, like someone who'd practiced the route. Past the entry, left out the hallway, paused at the framed pictures. She held her breath, called 911 on silent, and slid under the bed, phone shaking so hard the screen smeared. The operator whispered she was on the way. The footsteps stopped outside the bedroom door. "Wrong house," the man said softly, almost polite. The knob turned. Slow, deliberate. She watched his shoes pause at the threshold, then moved toward the closet straight past where she hid. He knew the floorboard that squeaked. They avoided Italiano. She heard hangers squeal on the rod. A low chuckle, then the whisper, close enough to fog the slats. "You changed the code." Her phone buzzed with a dispatcher's update. Sirens were close. The footsteps retreated. The front door opened, then shut. Silence. She crawled out, shaking, flipped every light on, and found the spare key she'd lost wedged into the baseboard of her closet, taped with blue painter's tape. fresh, not dusty. Next to it, a folded sticky note, in her own handwriting. Hide here, in case of emergency. She didn't write that. Behind her, the bedroom door clicked locked from the inside. The keypad on the hallway wall flashed red. 10. Wint. Dark as if someone had unplugged power from a panel. Only an owner would know. A soft breath lifted the hairs on her neck from under the bed she'd just crawled out of, followed by the faint scrape of something metallic across wood. Good. The same voice murmured from the dark undercarriage. You found it. The wrong taxi. She caught the cab on a rain-slicked corner. Yellow paint bruised by streetlight. Off-duty half-burned behind the glass. The driver never looked back, never spoke, just watched her in the rear view like a smudge that moved when she breathed. Blocks blurred to emptier streets. Then a narrow alley that swallowed the headlights like a throat. Airphone buzzed. She texted her friend the plate number. The only thing she could see clearly in the mirror. 743 LN. Send. Read. When the car stopped, the locks clicked down with a sound like knuckles cracking. She whispered, "Wrong turn," and reached for the door. The driver's head tilted, vertebrae popping, face still out of sight until the rear view shifted and filled with glass-like eyes that didn't catch the light. Saroons flared the alley red. Relief hit so hard she laughed. The cruiser's doors opened. 2 officers jogged up, flashlights spearing the cab. She waved, crying, breath fogging the window. Both beams cut through the driver's seat. The chair was empty. Her phone chimed, a reply from a friend. "You sure?" "That plate's from my draft folder. I never sent it." The officers yanked her door. Nobody inside, they said, collapsed and damped. Just a warm dent in the back seat. When they checked the dash cam of their own patrol car later, it showed her standing alone, palms on the air, begging through a shadow that wasn't there. At the precinct, they ran the plate. No record in city, state, or national. No cab medallion ever assigned. They rewound the 911 call to hear her breathless whisper then. Another voice layered beneath, using her mouth, repeating the numbers. Weeks later, her friend texted again at 2:17 a.m. "Weird, we keep getting deliveries for you. All from 7T43 LN dispatch." Attached was a photo of a receipt timestamped the exact minute the cab door had locked. In the reflection of the deli's glass, there was a taxi idling at the curb with no driver, meter ticking upward like a heartbeat. She moved out, changed numbers, stopped taking cabs. But sometimes, when a storm rolls over the city and the alleys turn to mirrors, her phone lights up from a blocked caller. The voicemail is always empty, except for a meter's soft click, 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 patiently waiting for a life that never gets in. The attic footsteps. He woke at 2:13 a.m., 2 pacing above his bedroom heel. Toe, drag crossing from one end of the ceiling to the other, then back again, boards softly ticking as if cooling from day heat. He lay still, heartbeat counting the turns, remembering the realtor's line. Single story, no attic. Clean crawl space. He'd laughed, then. Now the steps paused directly over his chest and shifted weight, like someone deciding. He flicked on the bedside lamp. The sound kept going, indifferent to the light. He stepped into the hall, grabbed the broom, and jabbed the ceiling. "Hey!" he shouted, trying for angry instead of scared. The footsteps stopped. Silence so complete it had shape. Then, from the kitchen, the back door deadbolt turned. Once, twice, slow. He stood frozen as the door creaked, then clicked shut again. He checked it still locked, chain on, no footprints on the mat. He locked it anyway, twice, and turned back toward the hall. The footsteps resumed above him, following. "He called the sheriff," dispatch said a deputy would swing by. He put the phone on speaker, laid it on the dresser, and pulled down the folding ladder for the crawlspace hatch in the hallway, sealing just a shallow duct run. No room to stand. He yanked the cord. The hatch dropped with a puff of dust. Silence. He steadied the ladder and climbed. Warm air exhaled against his face, like breath trapped all day. He aimed his flashlight into the narrow dark and saw exactly what he expected. Insulation, duct, wiring, 4 feet of space, tapering to nothing. No footprints, boards to pace on, just a seam of joists and the thin back of drywall. A soft scuff came from behind him on his bedroom floor. He killed the light and didn't breathe. The pacing started again, but wrong now too. Close, too thick, like soles dragging inches over his head and under his feet at the same time. The phone on the dresser said, "You still there, sir?" A second phone, his own, answered from the crawl space in a flat copy of his voice. "You still there, sir?" He swung the beam to the left. The ductwork trembled, then stilled. He swung it right-hand, found a line of nails, pushed clean through the drywall from above, their points piercing into open air. One by one, the nails slid back out, whispering as they withdrew themselves. He watched 5 little silver tips vanish into the ceiling, as if fingers had pinched them. The bedroom lamp flickered. Footsteps resumed across the ceiling, then stopped directly over the hatch where his head and shoulders were poking through. The drywall sagged a fraction, like a foot had rested on it from a place where no foot could stand. "Don't," he said to nothing. "This is a single-story house." The thing on the other side of the drywall shifted its weight and took a step down. The ceiling bowed, hairline cracks racing outward like frost. Something heavy tested the seam. Careful, patient, figuring the angle. He scrambled down the ladder, missed the last rung, fell hard, and scuttled backward on hands and heels as the hatch shook above him with a muffled thud. The deputy's headlights washed over the windows. Relief came hot and stupid. He sprinted to the door. "Trewit! Open!" A man in a tan uniform stood on the porch, rain curling off his hat brim. He lifted a hand. "Evening," he said. His voice came from the ceiling behind the man, from directly over the bedroom, perfectly doubled. Heel, toe, drag. The deputy frowned. "You hear that?" Heel, toe, drag down the hole, toward the front door. The deputy stepped inside and looked up. "You got an attic hatch?" The homeowner pointed, shaking. "There's no attic." They both stared down the dim hall where the hatch hung open like a mouth. The steps stopped at the threshold. The deputy glanced at his radio. It was hissing, but not static breathing. His shoulder mic crackled with the homeowner's voice, tight and afraid. "There's no attic." The same words came again, deeper, from the ceiling, as if learned and played back by lungs that had only just figured out how. The deputy lifted his flashlight and took one slow step forward. The beam painted the hatch. A hand came down, first long, chalk pale, wrist too thin, fingers dusted with insulation flakes and dotted with nail heads where the knuckles should be, shining like metal under skin. It found the ladder rung and pressed, testing. Then another hand, palm stamped with faint, backward letters from a contractor's mark bled through the drywall. Nitrogen monoxide attic. The deputy stepped back. The homeowner slammed the door on instinct. Deadbolt twisting, chain lifted. From inside the hallway, the ladder creaked as weight committed. The deputy knocked. "Sir, open up." The homeowner stared through the peephole. The deputy's face looked back, worried. Behind him, in the glass of the storm door, the ceiling and the reflection rippled like water. A shade moved across it, upside down, pacing toward the foyer. The knob turned from the inside. His deadbolt slid back. Once, twice, slow. The chain lifted without hands. The door eased an inch. Then 2. The deputy shoved it open, radio up, flashlight high. The foyer was empty, the hole beyond dim. The ladder swayed, stilling. The house gave a tiny settling pop, the kind you hear when the temperature shifts and wood sighs. Then, directly over their heads, the footsteps started again, calm now, methodical, moving away. Heel, toe, drag, down the hall, over the bedroom, into a space that did not exist. The deputy's radio breathed, then spoke in the homeowner's voice and the deeper double together, perfectly in sync. "There's no attic." The footsteps stopped. Above them, something smiled. You could hear it. The locked car at the Port St. Lucie Mall had emptied 2 gleaming floors and vacuum tracks when she finally clocked out. The Florida night was damp and warm, the parking lot buzzing with a few moths and the far-off hiss of the highway. Her hatchback sat under a flickering light. Windows dark, like a wink. She hit unlock. Nothing. Try it again. The car chirped. Lights blinked. And that's when she saw someone sitting behind the driver's seat. A shape leaned just enough forward for the headrest to bend. A silhouette she didn't know, breathing slow, like they belonged there. She froze, key between knuckles, locked again. Checked the fob. Red light blinked. She backed away, never taking her eyes off the back seat. The shape didn't move. The headrest stayed bowed like a polite nod. She turned and walked fast, then ran. Sneakers, slapping the painted arrows. "Security," she told the man at the desk, breath tearing. "In my car?" "Someone." They came back together, the guard's flashlight throwing long shadows across lines of sun-faded sedans. The hatchback waited. "Polit. A saber." The guard circled, checked handle still locked. He cupped his hands to the glass. Being cut in the dark. Empty. Backseat clean. No shape. No breath. Nothing. "Probably a reflection," the guard said, though he sounded like he was testing the words, not believing them. "People see things." She pointed. "The seatbelt," she whispered. The rear belt lay buckled, tongue latched, slack pulled tight, like holding weight that had just stood up and left. The guard frowned. "You didn't." She shook her head. She never buckled the back. No one rode there. He made her pop the doors. They opened now, like they'd been waiting for permission. He leaned in, cautious, flashlight sweeping under seats, into footwells, inside the trunk. He even tugged the belt. It didn't release. He thumbed the red button. It clicked, clean, and the belt recoiled with a shy zip. "See?" he said, relief poorly stapled over his voice. "Glit." He offered to walk her car to the exit. She agreed. The hatchback started with its usual cough. The radio came on, low static, then the tale of a song she didn't know. She adjusted the mirror. The back seat stared back, uncomplicated fabric and headrests. Everything fine. At the lot's edge, the guard tapped her roof, gave a thumbs up. She smiled, thanked him, rolled onto the service road. Pomfrons hissed in the warm wind. Her phone buzzed with a text. "Let me know you got home," she breathed out, for the first time in 10 minutes. At the second red light, she felt it. A tiny shift in weight, like a grocery bag sliding across carpet. The car rocked, not at all, but the sensation threaded through the steering wheel into her palms. She checked the mirror. Still empty. The seatbelt chime dinged once. Then again, rear right. The tiny red icon flashed on the dash. Passenger unbuckled. Her mouth dried. The car rolled forward. With the green, the chime stopped. The icon stayed lit. She merged onto the highway. Truck's row red light streaked. The radio went from static to someone laughing, soft and far away, like a microphone under a blanket. She lowered the volume. The laugh stayed. She killed the radio. The laugh kept going, barely there, like a draft under a door. She took the next exit too fast. The belt chimed dinged again, a little more insistent. She checked the mirror. Nothing. The road ahead was empty. The sky was starless. Her phone buzzed again. New notification flashed across her dash from the Chorus Connected app. A feature she'd never set up. Backseat reminder. Check rear seats. She pulled into a 24-hour gas station and parked under a security camera. She turned around, hands on the seat. Eyes scanning. The air back there was cold, colder than the AC. The fabric smelled faintly damp, like rain-soaked upholstery that never dried. She pressed her palm to the cushion. It was slightly warm, not hers. Her breath shook. "Okay?" she said aloud, as if she were soothing a toddler after a nightmare. "Okay." Out, She unbuckled the rear belt. The tongue clicked free and stayed loose, like a hand letting go. She held it there, refusing to let it snap back. "Out," she repeated, because saying the word was the only power she had. Something brushed her knuckles. Not pressure. Not skin. More like the memory of fingers. A cool draft shaped like touch. The tongue slipped from her grip and zipped home. A clean, quick recoil. In the glass of the dark window, her reflection leaned forward, eyes wide. Behind her, the faintest ripple disturbed a headrest, a subtle bow, like someone settling in once more. The backseat reminder. Pinged again. Cheerful. Check rear seats. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She pulled her keys, stepped out, and shut the door gently, not daring to slam it. She left the engine running and backed away, phone in hand, already dialing for a ride, the security camera blinking red above her. Through the windshield, the car shifted itself into park. On its own, the interior dome light faded up, slow and theatrical, bathing the empty cabin in soft gold. The back belt slid out an inch, then two, then stopped, hanging slack, like an arm placed companionably across shoulders that weren't there. The car's speakers, still off, whispered with that tucked-away laugh, and for a heartbeat the fog of a breath bloomed against the inside of the rear window, a crescent of condensation curving and fading as if someone leaned closer to see her better. She turned to run. Her pocket buzzed on, automatic notification from the mall's security thread. She'd de-signed up 4 years ago and forgotten. A photo previewed in the banner. A grainy still from Lot C, sent 2 minutes earlier. Her hatchback, parked under the flicker. In the back seat, a tall, gray smudge bent close to the glass. Seatbelt stretched over where its chest would be. Head tilted, attentive. Subject. Suspicious person seen entering vehicle. She glanced back once. A mistake. The backseat icon on her dash had turned off. Buckled. Then, her car flashed its hazards, twice like a wing canned. The doors thunked, locking themselves. The engine purred. The headrest bowed, patient. And in the night heat, with crickets drilling the dark, the seatbelt creaked an inch tighter, then stilled, like it was making room. The hospital bed night shift at St. Mary's ran on coffee and hums ventilators, ice machines, the soft prayer of fluorescent lights. By 2:17 a.m., Nurse Angelia had charted vitals for everyone in Ward C, except room 12. The hurricane evacuee, with a faded tattoo and the stubborn pulse that clung like a burr. She pushed the door with her hip, pen in her teeth. The bed was empty. Sheets smooth, rails up. 4-line looped neatly on the pole as if posed for a brochure. Her pen hid the floor. "Mr. Boudreau," she called, forcing cheer into the hush. Bathroom door open. Window locked. Hallway quiet. Nothing. She hit the call button at the nurse's station. "Code," she started, and the hallway lights hit. The intercom hissed like a long exhale. She ran back to room 12. He was there again, exactly where he'd been all night, head tilted slightly toward the heart monitor. Only now his skin had turned that winter blue no air can shake. Lips the color of old grapes. The monitor read a flat green line, but the machine didn't alarm. It hummed like it was listening. "Jesus," Angela whispered, fingers finding a wrist she already knew was stone. She checked anyway. No pulse. No pulse. "No!" The overhead speaker popped. "Code blue. Ward C." It said in her own voice, low and calm, like she was making a recording of herself from somewhere behind her teeth. Angela backed away. She hadn't said that. Dante hole doors cracked open. Shoes squeaked. Help was coming. A tide. But too far back. In room 12. The curtain breathed in, as if someone behind it had sighed. It breathed out again. Cooler, the way a freezer opens. She glanced at the monitor to check the time. Old habit, the display showed 2:16 a.m. 1 minute earlier on to faint, pale reflection in the glass that wasn't hers. A man's chin with a tattoo, eyes half-lidded, smiling like he'd just thought of a joke. Behind the reflection, The bed was empty again. The fourth line swung slowly as if someone had just slipped free. Angela looked at the real bed. The body did not match the reflection. The reflected room was missing the rosary she knew hung on the IV pole. It had a different clock. Older, with hands that stuttered instead of ticks. Her radio crackled at her hip. "Angela," said a voice that sounded like Dr. Hale, and like her father, and like no one at all. "Turn him!" Her hands moved before her brain consented. She rolled the man on his side, expecting weight. He was light. 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 The sheet eased under him as if he were mostly air, or he had already left and left only the shape. A scrap of paper slid from under his shoulder, a folded nurse's note she didn't write. She unfolded it with the idiot patience of someone reading a bomb's label. It said, in her handwriting, "Do not leave him alone between 2:15 and 2:17. She checked the clock. The monitor still swore it was 2:16. Her watch said to 19. The wall clock said nothing at all. Its second hand quivered over the same tick mark, like a trapped bee. From the corner, the visitor's chair scraped. No one sat. The fabric sagged, like a heavy man had just settled, like knees opening, like relief. A low voice, not quite a voice, came from where the air dipped, saying, "I told you I'd go quiet." "I'm calling it," someone said from the doorway. The crash team had arrived without footsteps. Faces gray as tile, they stared not at the bed, but Angela waiting. As if she was the clock, now. As if she could make the time change by saying it. "I didn't leave," she said. Though she had, for a heartbeat, for a door swing, for a pen on the floor. "I didn't." The monitor beeped once. The flat line trembled, then drew a single peak. Not a hot beat. A hill. A signature. Angela looked down. The manuscript bore the faint imprint of a bandage she hadn't applied. A circle mark, like something metallic had kissed his skin and taken its warmth. Her own wrist burned in the same place. She lifted the Italiano. The circle on her skin was colder than everything else in the room. "Time of death." Dr. Hale asked crisp, professional, like a tape played through cotton. Her mouth shaped to 17, but the speaker said it first, in her calm voice, from everywhere. "To 17. The crash team nodded, as if they'd only come to hear it. They turned as one. Their shadows stayed a heartbeat too long, then cut up like a flock. Angela stood alone with the body and the chair that remembered weight. The monitor finally exhaled its alarm, shrill and belated, like it had to travel a long way here. She silenced it with a thumb. On the glass, her reflection scrub top had a blood smear that wasn't on her shirt. The reflected room's bed was empty, rails up, neat. In that other room, she watched herself turn toward a door that wasn't there and leave. When she glanced back at the actual bed, the man's eyes were open, filmed, focused not on her but through her, past her shoulder. She did not turn. She felt the cold pass by, brushing her like a curtain corner, and settle into the chair with a satisfied creak. From the speaker, her voice spoke again, already fading. "Do not leave him alone between 2:15 and 2:17. She picked up her pen from the floor and wrote it down on a fresh note anyway, in case the next nurse needed to read it before she said it. In the hallway, every clock in Ward C clicked forward at once. Only room 12 lagged, its second hand, stuttering, backed up a notch and held, like a mouth closing over a last breath that had already left. The forgotten friend 2 years after Josh's funeral. Mark was doom-scrolling in his Illinois apartment when a notification slid over the screen. "Joshua Keller sent you a friend request." The profile picture was the same one Mark had taken outside Wrigley Gouchemit, sun flaring off his teeth, the day before the wreck. Mark's throat went tight. He clicked through, expecting a memorial, a hack, a cruel coincidence. The account had just one update. "Back in town," Mark messaged, handshaking. "Who is this?" 3 dots appeared, vanished, then a reply. "You said not to be mad. You said to come back when it was quiet." Mark sat very still. He had said something like that, whispered into a hospital sheet that already felt empty. "Come back when it is quiet, okay?" He'd meant the dream kind of quiet. the healing kind, not this. His phone buzzed. A new album uploaded to Josh's page. 10 photos titled Old Times. Mark tapped. They weren't old. The first was the view from Mark's couch tonight, crooked and grainy. The TV paused on a baseball replay. The second was his kitchen sink, stack of plates, that coffee mug with the chip. The third, his hallway in low light, and in the reflection of the picture frame glass, a dark shape that could have been a shoulder. He swallowed hard and scrolled. Photo 9 was Mark, sleeping on his stomach, shot from the bedroom doorway. Photo 10 was a black square with a caption. Open up, a knock came. Soft Mark muted the TV without realizing. Another knock, same rhythm Josh used to tap when picking him up in high school. Too short, too long. He stood, phone cold in his palm. On the screen, Josh was typing again. Thanks for not moving. The message read, I hate when people change the layout. Who are you? Mark managed. The reply came fast. Your best man. They'd never made it to the wedding. Mark swallowed the old grief like a pill that never dissolved. Go away. Knew you'd say that, came the reply. Check your memories. A new post auto-appeared on Mark's feed, one of those on this daytime hops. It was all the drunk videos and road trips, Josh in every frame. Then the last clip, dashcam footage Mark had never seen. A brief and impossible reconstruction from nowhere. Rain, the glint of headlights, Josh's hands on the wheel, the whisper of, don't be mad, almost like a laugh, and something else, fingers, not his, curling over his knuckles as if guiding them. The knock came again. Closer this time, right against the wood, a slow drag of nail. Mark edged to the peephole, but saw only the warping fisheye of his empty hall. He backed away one step. His phone chimed. Let me in. It's cold. He typed, you're dead. 3 dots appeared. Then, you said not to make a scene. A live notification flashed at the top of the screen. Joshua Keller started a live video. Mark tapped automatically, the way you do when something is already too late. The screen showed his building's stairwell, floor by floor, each landing humming under cheap fluorescent. The video tilted, climbed, tilted, climbed. Footsteps never heard but implied. Comments rolled in from names Mark didn't recognize. Welcome back. Missed ya. Don't forget me. Each profile a selfie with eyes just out of frame. The live viewer count ticked upward. 1, 12, 58, 201. 666. The feed turned down Mark's hallway. His own door filled the frame, scuffed, the 4 and 304 dangling from one nail. The camera leaned in until the peephole became a black, unblinking pupil. From the other side, Mark watched himself as a tiny warped oval, standing very still, phone raised like a candle. His phone buzzed with a new friend request. Rebecca is Josh's sister. She'd been buried with him after the bridge collapse, a year apart. The caption under her profile photo. Carpool. Mark's lock clicked. He hadn't touched it. The live feed went black for a heartbeat and came back inside his entryway, looking at the shoes lined up by the mat. His old sneakers, Josh's pair, 2 he'd kept them. Mark looked down at the real mat. The sneakers were in the same order. The phone in his hand vibrated with the final message. Toldy ID. Find you first. The live camera panned up the hall toward him. He lifted his eyes in the real room, and the air had a smell no rain and hot breaks. On screen. The view paused by the framed photos of them at Wrigley, then continued toward the bedroom. Mark stepped back, heartbeat punching his ribs. Torn between hurling the phone and watching the proof, he texted, Desperate. What do you want? The answer came without delay. To catch up, it read. To tag everyone. New friend requests poured in. Names he knew from accident reports and obituaries. faces cropped too close, each with a status that read some version of made it home. The live viewer count spiked. The last thing the video showed before it reached him was the end of his own outstretched arm, holding a glowing rectangle that reflected a stranger's grin, not Josh's. Too many teeth, too wide, like something had learned the shape of a smile from memory and over. Mark finally found his voice and yelled, "Get out." The live feed froze on his open mouth and then split, duplicating itself into a grid 16 tiles each tile, a different hallway that looked almost like his. In each, a door hung slightly ajar. In each, a phone lifted. In each, someone who had once said, "Come back when it's quiet," stared into a screen just like his. Somewhere inside the apartment, behind him, his deadbolt slid home all by itself. The notification sounds kept coming, bright and cheerful, stacking over each other until they became a single, continuous tone. When it finally cut out, the only thing left was the soft rhythm at the door. Too short. Too long. "Let me in," the message pinged, gentle as ever. "You're going to love. Who's with me?" The moving shadow in January's flat, gray light. Caleb stood in his bedroom in Detroit, watching his shadow float across the wall like a dark fish under ice. He was perfectly still, breath held. Fingers numb, yet the shadow lifted its arm and scratched the back of its head. Caleb didn't move. The shadow did it again, slower, testing him, like it was learning the shape of his body. He stepped left. The shadow didn't. It stayed facing the bed, head tilted, then raised a finger to its lips and shooshed. "Dad!" Caleb called, voice breaking. No answer. From the hall came the soft scrape of his father's cane, but that was impossible. His dad had been night shifted at the plant since 6. The shadow turned toward the door before the cane reached it. Caleb lunged for the light switch, but the bulb popped a bright fizz, then dark. In the black, the shadow remained darker than dark, still pinned to the wall like a pinned moth, except now it stood beside a second Shapatola silhouette, with one shoulder slumped in a cane, angled wrong like something borrowed and badly worn. Caleb's phone vibrated. A text from Dad. "On my way, Olmi. Roads are bad. 15 minutes. The shadow boy lifted its hands and stretched them wide, and the taller shadow hooked an arm through. The room felt smaller, colder, drier, like the air was being folded. The pair moved without him, gliding to the window where the icy glass showed only the gray street and their black forms. Not Caleb's. He tried to run. His legs didn't listen. His shadow, no, not his anymore, turned its head backward, a slow, rubbery twist, and stared at him with a face that was only absence. It mouthed something. "Open." In the driveway, a car door slammed. Keys rattled. The front lock clicked. Caleb's shadow pressed a palm to the window. Frost spidered from the print. The taller one lifted the cane and knocked once. Caleb's reflection stayed gone. The bedroom door creaked open and his father's voice came soft and tired. "Buddy, lights out." The window latch slid by itself. The night's breath rolled in, smelling like old pennies. Caleb finally screamed. The shadow didn't. It stepped forward, peeling off the wall as if from glue, and walked past him without sound. As it slipped through the door, it took the shape of his silhouette with it, leaving Caleb's feet to cast nothing on the floor. "Don't hole," his father whispered, confused. "Caleb." The cane thumped once, then twice, then stopped. In the doorway, something the size of a boy stood perfectly still, and on the wall behind it, 2 shadows moved. The open laptop he woke to blue light on his Pennsylvania bedroom ceiling, the laptop's glow turning the fan blades into slow, ghostly paddles. He didn't remember opening it. On the screen, a new Word document, blank except for one sentence, centered like a title. "You look peaceful when you sleep." He laughed once, dry. Maybe he'd typed it drunk. Maybe autocorrect had a nervous breakdown. He checked the time. 3:12 a.m. He checked the webcam. A grain of dust at the edge. The tiny green led off. He closed the lid with 2 fingers. The lid rose by itself, a soft hinge sigh, like a careful breath. He stared. The cursor blinked on the sentence. Then it moved, typing slow, like the keys were heavy. I didn't want to wake you. He reached for the trackpad. The arrow slid away from his finger, drifting across the screen like it preferred its own hand. He grabbed the power cord, yanked it free. The screen didn't dim. The cursor kept typing. You twitch when you dream. Counting, he looked down at his hands, at the faint crescents pressed into his palms. He hadn't remembered dreaming. Who is this? He said, because saying nothing felt worse. The cursor paused, then the same person as last time. He glanced at the window. The blinds were closed. The room was still. He thought of last time as a trick. There is no last time, he said. The cursor typed, You forgot because I needed you to sleep. The laptop fan spun up. A low whine. He slid his fingers under the base and felt it. Not heat, exactly, but a faint thrum, like a cat purring. He turned the laptop around to face the wall. The glow bounced off white paint. Stop, he said, more to the room than the machine. His phone, face down on the nightstand, buzzed once, then once again, like a heartbeat falling out of rhythm. He flipped it over. No notifications. The clock still read 3:12 a.m. He turned the laptop back. The document had grown. New lines stacked neatly, justified like a confession. You always look. You always turn me back. You always ask. Then you always fall asleep again. He pressed both palms on the keyboard, not typing anything. Just wait. The keys depressed under him with a soft, collective sigh. When he lifted his hands, there were letters under each finger, a row of ghost words stamped by his touch. Hello, the document said in a dozen overlapping places. He reached for the webcam, pinched the dust mote between finger and thumb. It wasn't dust. It was a flake of black tape cut into a perfect dot and stuck half off the lens. He didn't remember putting it there. The LAD stayed off. The cursor moved. Don't worry. I don't use the camera. His mouth went dry. Then how I sit, very close. Something shifted the mattress at his calf. He jerked his leg up, and at the same moment the laptop typed. There, like it was helping him locate the exact shape of what he already felt. He threw the covers back. Nothing. The fitted sheet pulled tight. A pale stage. No indent. No footprint. He pressed his palm to the spot. The fabric felt flattened, warm. His eyes watered, uselessly. On screen, another sentence formed. He put the tape on the camera. Because you didn't like seeing yourself when you asked me to stay. He felt something cold and deliberate traced the inside of his wrist, like a fingertip with no fingerprint. The words typed, slower now. Letters spaced like careful breathing. You look peaceful when you sleep, but you don't sleep long. He snatched the laptop, snapped it shut like a book, killing a bug. The room went dark. The fan kept moving overhead, slow and sure. He held the laptop hard against his chest and listened for the thrum. It matched his heartbeat, then let it. From the hallway, the printer hummed, awake the cheap inkjet he hadn't used in months. He'd unplugged that too, he thought. Hadn't he? The first page fed in with a papery gasp. Then another. Then another. He set the laptop down and walked to the doorway, every step a dare. The hall was a gray slit. The office door was ajar, a milky slice of blue on carpet. The printer worked patiently, coughing pages onto the tray. He didn't turn on the light. He didn't want to see something twice. He ran a hand along the wall and found the switch anyway. Fluorescent light punched the room flat. The printer had printed half a ream of the same sentence. Centered, big, clean font. You look peaceful when you sleep. He shuffled the top page aside. The next side, you look peaceful when you sleep. The third, you look peaceful when you sleep. Deep in the stack, a pagey, broke pattern. You look peaceful when you sleep. You stop when I touch your throat. Something leaned its weight gently into the back of his neck, just enough to bow his head. A teacher checking his work. He didn't scream, because it would have to decide what to do with the noise. The laptop on the bed chimed a bright, tidy note, like a calendar alert. He turned, slow, throat cold under something's patient hand. The lid had opened again. The document filled the screen. You asked last time how to make it stop. He couldn't remember asking, but he could feel the shape of the question in his mouth. A groove, worn by habit. How, he heard himself say, as if the room had pressed the word out of him. The answer typed itself in one quiet line. Stop. Sleeping. He stood there, the printer spitting the sentence again and again, like a prayer. The laptop purring on the bed, the fan stirring the ceiling into soft, repetitive comas. The weight lifted from his neck like approval. He backed out of the office, palms up, and the house exhaled, a satisfied little drop in the heat. He didn't sleep the next night, or the fourth night, around 3:12. The printer started anyway. By the seventh night, he was lying awake, eyes burning, hands shaking, staring at the ceiling when the laptop lid opened on its own in the dark. No light this time, only the sound of keys pressing without fingers, soft and careful, a lullaby rhythm. He didn't look. He didn't have to. It typed for him. The words he'd always asked, in a whisper of plastic and ghost. Please. Stay. The motel painting they checked into a roadside motel off I-35 after midnight. The kind with a humming ice machine and a lobby bell that rings itself. The room smelled like lemon cleaner and old rain. Above the bed hung a landscape. Sunset over a lake, brushstrokes thick and greasy. The kind of art that tries not to be seen. By 1:12 a.m., the lake looked wrong. It's slanting, she said, squinting. The horizon line drooped a fraction, as if the water was tipping out of the frame. He laughed, tugged at the corner loose. When he lifted the canvas, the wall was cut clean, drywall shaved to a perfect rectangle. A camera watched them from a black eye. Cables ran into the wall, down to the nightstand, into a cheap laptop hidden behind the Gideon Bible. They yanked it free. The desktop held one folder. RAOOMA, DSS7. Inside, dozens of videos, all named by date and time. The newest file was stamped with tonight, 1 hour, 12 minutes and 3 seconds a.m. The timestamp was 2 minutes from now, pre-scheduled, he said, trying to keep his voice steady. Security feed. She clicked anyway. The video opened on their bed. The same bedspread, the same dented lamp, the same water stain shaped like a bat above the AC unit. It was their room, silent and empty. The door in the video was closed. He glanced at their doorted bolt thrown, chain latched. In the video chain slid. The bolt turned. The door opened without a hand. No one entered. The door closed. The chain hooked itself, slow, as if pulled by a careful fingertip. The bedspread rucked down an inch. The lamp turned on. The lamp in the real room stayed dark. Okay, he whispered. We go now. She clicked. The next file 1 hour, 14 minutes and 10 seconds. AMB. 'Cause Tara makes liars of urgency. The camera watched the bathroom mirror. Blurred words were written there backward. Letters tall and childlike, revealed as someone breathed a fog across the glass. We see you. The video had no sound, but their room's bathroom mirror fogged as they watched, though no shower had run. When the fog cleared, the words weren't there. Only the camera saw them. He slammed the laptop shut. The screen stayed on. File names began populating the folder without her touching anything. 1 hour 15 minutes and 0 seconds. Lono Keenson trained to 1 hour 16 minutes. And 0 seconds endless. Hungry. Each thumbnail a freeze frame of places the camera shouldn't reach. The parking lot shot from above. Every car empty. Engines steaming like breath. The lobby with no clerk. The bell pressed down by nothing. Their own bed at angles the lens couldn't have, as if filmed from the ceiling, from the inside of the mattress, from the wet drain of the shower. In the next file, they were in Italiano. Few to them stood in the exact clothes they wore now. He held the laptop. She watched the screen. The video's time code was 1 minute ahead. Futushi looked up, eyes wide, then mouthed a word the file had no sound for. The future version of him started to run. "Now," she said, and they moved. He grabbed keys, wallet, her hand. The deadbolt unloved, chain scraped. The door swung, but the hallway beyond was wrong. The carpet pattern didn't match. The vending machine stood on the opposite wall. The exit sign read "Seat." The corridor curved slightly, like a camera lens bending it. "Wrong floor," he said, though there was only one. Room numbers staggered. 15, 17, 15, 17. All the same brass, all the same keyhole scab. The air smelled like old lemon and something wet under it. Behind them, their door eased shut on its own, latch kissing metal with a tiny, final sound. They ran toward the stairwell. The door pushed inward to a concrete shaft, with no steps, just a drop into dark, as if the stairs had been filmed and then erased. He swore and jerked back. Somewhere behind them, a bell ringed the desk. 3 polite things. The laptop chimed in her hands. A new file opened on its own. 1 hour, 17 minutes, and 30 seconds. AM, their faces filled the frame, caught in a tight close-up that the wall camera couldn't have. Her mouth was forming the words she hadn't heard herself speak. It looked like place. He took the laptop and hurled it down the empty stairwell. It fell a long time. Screen bright. On impact, the sound finally caught up the dull pop of plastic, the crunch of glass. The screen didn't break. It kept filming a blue square of something below that wasn't the bottom. They sprinted the other way, past doors that all said 17, past a painting of a lake that seemed to watch them run. The elevator dinged. Its door slid open. Inside, mirrored walls. In the reflection, they saw themselves, and behind them, their room door. But the reflection of their door was open. In the mirrors, past where they stood, the laptop sat on their bed again, lit up, camera on. The folder was full of files, all the way to dawn. The titles scrolled like credits. Their own names weren't there, but the last file had a label that wasn't a date. "Check out." He slammed the elevator button for lobby. The doors didn't close. The elevators mirrored them, stared back, patient and still. Behind their reflections now, Clear Lassoon One Tall stood in the corner that didn't exist in the real car, wearing a motel manager's blazer too long in the sleeves, its lapels black with damp. The figure didn't move. When it lifted a hand to adjust an invisible tie, the mirror showed the hand bend wrong, like fingers printed on film and crumpled. The bell at the desk rang again. 4 dings? Too polite to be a warning. "Back to the room," she said, because the map in her head had collapsed to a single square. They burst in. The painting lay face down on the carpet. The laptop was exactly where the mirror had promised, waiting on the bed. The latest file was open. In it, they walked in and approached the laptop. The time code was now. On the screen, their future selves froze. Slowly, Futoshi turned her head sideways and smiled at the camera, wide and kind and wrong. Futurim lifted a hand and waved, fingers too many, like the motion blur had decided to stay. The real clock on the microwave ticked over to 1:18 a.m. The painting on the floor made a soft sound. Canvas, stretching. The brushstroke lake, rippling like something underneath, was breathing. The motel's Wi-Fi network blinked alive on their phones. It had one available connection. Guest_17_checkout. "Don," he said, seeing her thumb hover. But the laptop connected itself. The final file appeared, labeled with a word they didn't remember giving anyone. Home. The video showed their kitchen back in Austin Fruit Bowl. Crooked, magnet, the black smudge above the stove from one bad oil pop. The camera was already installed behind the family photo. Their front door opened on screen without a hand, letting something tall and polite step in, its blazer dripping a little on their entry rug. In the reflection of their microwave, the painting over the motel bed showed a lake at morning fresh, smooth, ready to be seen. She closed the laptop. Outside, a car pulled into the lot, headlights sweeping the blinds. The beam slid across the painting's face-down canvas, and a silver flash moved beneath it, like a fish rolling close to the surface. They didn't sleep. At 3 a.m., the front desk called their room. A soft voice, pleasant, asked if they would like to extend their stay. The caller ID showed a number they knew by heart. There. Home. The bedroom stranger, she woke to the soft tick of her wall clock and the smell of cold air. The kind that lives in stairwells. In the corner chair, a man sat with his knees together and his hands folded like he'd been taught manners, smiling a careful, practiced smile. Her scream tore the room in half. He was up and gone in one clean motion, out through her bedroom door on bare feet, the hallway light catching a pale strip of skin at his heel like a tail lamp. By the time she hit the switch and chased, the apartment was a mouth already shut, front door closed, chain still latched, deadbolt still vertical. No window open, curtain moving, just her heartbeat and the echo of her own name in the pipes. Police came with quiet shoes and bright pens. They checked everything. No pry marks, no bent metal, nothing forced. He had a key, the officer said, almost apologetic, like he was handing her a mirror instead of a report. He let himself in. She changed the locks. That afternoon, new deadbolt, new chain, even a keypad on the knob. She watched the handyman bag the old hardware and carry it away like an organ donor. She slept that night with the dresser pushed against the door and the TV on low, a blue aquarium of strangers' voices to keep her company. At 3:11 a.m., the TV clicked to a black input screen, as if a hand had found the right button in the dark. The room fell into the hum of the building, the tiny electric sigh of charging phones. The red dot on the smoke detector blinked. 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 She heard the softest scrape, fabric on fabric, from the chair in the corner. She didn't scream this time. She reached for her phone, eyes locked on the silhouette of the chair, and whispered, "I changed the locks." The shape didn't move. The air smelled faintly of metal shavings, like the breath of a key grinder. "Good," a voice said, pleased and close, not from the chair, from the hallway, beyond the bedroom door. Her throat closed. The dresser, heavy and certain, pressed against the wood. She hadn't heard it move. She hadn't felt the door open. She stared at child again, at the seam where door met frame. A second voice, the same voice, answered from the chair. "Because he don't like sharing." She fumbled the flashlight on her phone and blasted the corner. The chair was empty. The beam swung to the door just as the deadbolt turned by itself, one clean, confident click, like a trick she'd performed 1,000 times. Her new keypad chirped, waking, and began to scroll digits she hadn't pressed. 1904. A pause. 1904. Another pause. Then the code entered backward, like a tongue tasting its own name. She lunged for the dresser to brace it harder. The wood didn't budge. Not because it was heavy, because something on the other side was holding the door shut with the same patient, folded hands pressure she'd seen in the chair. Her phone vibrated. Unknown number. She answered without thinking. "Whisper thin. Who is this?" A soft breath. The exact breath she'd heard in her room hours ago. "You sleep with your mouth open," the voice said. "Almost tender. I don't think you know that." She hung up, hand slick. Called 911. Line engaged. Kajit. Again ring. Ring? On the third ring, her own voicemail picked up, her recorded voice bright and dishonest. "Leave a message." The man exhaled in the hallway, amused. "I already did." Her message alert chimed. New voicemail. She put it on speaker with shaking fingers. In the recording, her door opened, hinges quiet. Footsteps walked across her rug, the whispering sound of someone sitting down in the corner chair. Long pause, then the gentle click of a key being turned in her bedside drawer. A drawer she hadn't opened in months, the one with the spare keys. She jerked the drawer open. Empty. The velvet tray still held an imprint where the ring had been, a little oval of dust like a faded bruise. The keypad chirped again. Wrong code. Wrong code. Wrong. Wrong. The door should have locked out. It didn't. The screen went blank. The deadbolt turned not toward locked, but toward a soft, elastic middle. A position hardware isn't built to have. As if the door were learning a new angle to be open, she dragged the dresser back with everything she had. Te door diden, te swing, inward. It pulsed. Once. Twice. Like something breathing through it. She backed toward the window, fumbled the latch, shoved glass and night apart. The courtyard below was a black square with silver edges. A neighbor's bathroom light turned on across the way, then off, like a blink. Behind her, the chair creaked. She turned. The man sat in it again, hands folded, smile exact. The hallway was empty now. Dedo calma reflection, tiny, in the keypad's dark glass. I changed the locks, she said, because her brain had stuck on the only sentence it had. He nodded, pleased. Me too. He lifted a simple brass ring from his lap. Keys chiming softly. Not one key. Dozens. They looked new and old and handmade, engraved in blank, rough and perfect. Some were thin as paper, cut in patterns that made her eyes slide off them. Some were thick and jagged like bone. They turned on the ring without touching, orbiting the center, as if the air were gears. How did you? She began. He tilted his head, considering her like a problem he'd already solved. You kept giving me copies, he said gently. Every time you left a door behind and told yourself you'd never go back. Every time you said, I'm safe now, and slept like someone who believed it. He stood without sound. The keys stilled. Please, she managed. The word small and childish. Take whatever you want. Just leave. I did, he said, smiling wider. Kind enough to look almost sad. I took your locks. She lunged for the window, dragged one leg over the sill. The screen gave, popped, fell like a soft plate into the dark. She swung the other leg when the room shifted, the way a house does when a door opens or closes somewhere else. The air went thin. The clock ticked once. Wrong. She looked back. The door to her bedroom wasn't a door anymore. It was a frame of wood around a mouthful of hallway that wasn't hers longer, darker, with carpet that swallowed light. It smelled like stairwells and key dust, like the breath of things that opened from the inside. He didn't touch her. He didn't need to. He stepped past, into the new hall, and the keys on his ring all turned at once, a hush of teeth. From the living room, her TV turned on to a home screen she didn't recognize. Settings, devices, a list unfolded. Front door, back door, bedroom, storage, memory. Next to each, a status light. Unlocked. The man paused at the threshold and looked back over his shoulder. That same careful smile. Call the police, he offered, helpful, and nodded toward her phone. Tell them nothing's been forced. He tapped the frame with his knuckle, a courteous knock. Tell them he had a copy. Then he stepped into the hall that wasn't there and closed her door with a sound like a key being taught a new language. The deadbolt turned itself, slow and grateful, to a position she had no word for. The keypad lit up, accepted a code she hadn't set, and went dark. The dresser pressed forward an inch, as if the room had exhaled. She hung in the window, bare feet on the sill, trying to choose the part of her life that still had hinges. In the silence, her phone buzzed with a notification. New device added. Bedroom. Shared access granted by you. The drive home she first noticed the sedan on County Road 17, two pinprick headlights hanging back at the exact same distance, like they were measuring her. She sped up. It did too. She took a hard right past a shuttered gas station, then a left onto a neighborhood with dead-end loops. Christmas. Lights still up, swaying in wind. The car followed each turn without signaling, never closing, never dropping. just a patient metronome in her rear view. She killed her headlights for 3 seconds, heart loud, then snapped them back on. The road bloomed. The car was gone. Her relief lasted 1 breath. In the rear view, 2 new pinpricks flickered on closer, like eyes adjusting. She floored it. The engine screamed. Mailboxes blurred. Her hands shook so hard she could feel the wheel chatter. She cut across a median, tires catching gravel, and barreled toward the only bright thing left at this hour. The police station S. Floodlit lot. As she swung in, the high beams from behind washed her cabin bone white. The lot was empty, night insects stuttering in sheets of light. She braked hard, twisting in her seat to finally see who. No car. The street beyond was clean and flat, wind skimming its black surface like a blade. Her mirrors showed nothing but her own taillights. Trembling, she killed the engine and listened. A low, steady hum ran under the lights, the kind that makes fillings buzz. The police lobby glowed through glass, blank and fluorescent. She luffed in, angry. Okay. Her phone lit with a notification she didn't remember setting. Arrived. Home. She looked down at the screen's little map. A blue dot sat perfectly in the police lot. A tiny route snaked from her last turn like a vein. Behind the dot, a gray shadow traced the same route half a second later, catching up, and stopping right where she'd stopped, then sliding forward through her dot, into the building, and out the other side. Her driver's side window fogged from the outside, a quick white bloom. The long streaks dragged down the glass like wet fingers writing too fast. The letters formed backward to her, then reformed in the mirror. Stay in the light. The flood lamps overhead clicked, one by one, like someone walking down them and flipping switches. Far end first, then the next. Each click cut a slice of dark that didn't look like shadows so much as a room without windows, rolling toward her across the asphalt. The insects vanished mid-flight where the dark passed, blinking out like sparks in water. She grabbed her keys and ran for the lobby. Her shoes slapped. The air between pools of light felt tall and thin. The automatic doors parted late, like they had to think about it. Inside, the room smelled like lemon cleaner and old coffee. A desk sat empty. A bulletin board listed neighborhood watches long expired. The clock on the wall stuttered between 2:17 and 2:18 and never picked. Her phone pulsed again. The map now showed a simple, featureless grid with a blue dot on a pale square labeled home. The gray shadow moved around her, very slow, drawing a loop. A small text bubble appeared above it, as if the app had a voice. Almost. The lobby lights fluttered. The glass behind her reflected the latte black rectangle where the lamps had been, now all out except the one directly over her car. In that single island of light, something stood by her driver's door, tall enough to fold, its head tilted low like it was reading her plates. It turned, and even from across the glass she felt the pull of its attention fall exactly where she was breathing. She reached for the desk phone, lifted the receiver. No dial tone, just the hum, closer now, braided with something like whispering through a vent. A side door down the hall banged once, then again, each time wider, though no one pushed it. Beyond it was a corridor with motion lights that failed to wake as the dark rolled in, careful and dense, like it had a shape it was trying to keep. Her car key fob chirped in her pocket. She hadn't touched it. Out in the lot, the headlights flared from her car all at once, blinding. When the afterimage lifted, the car in the pool of light wasn't hers anymore. Same model, same paint, same dent in the rear bumper. The plates were hers. The windshield had a smear at the exact place her wipers always missed. But the driver's seat, visible under the dome light that had switched on by itself, was occupied. Someone sat there, hands at 10 and 2, head bowed, breathing, fogging the glass from the inside. Her phone buzzed. The map zoomed tight until the blue dot filled the screen. Under it, the label updated. Arrived. Safe. The lobby lights went out. The glass door held a reflection for a heartbeat longer than there was light to make it. In that stretched second, she saw the lot, the car, herself at the counter, and the other, her in the driver's seat, lift its head and smile at nothing, as if testing a face it had borrowed. Then the reflection let go. The dark reached the glass and stopped, pressed against it like a patient hand. Behind her, down the hall, a single motion sensor light flickered on. It was nowhere near the door. It was just enough to cast her shadow outward, long and thin, toward the glass, where it overlapped the tall shape waiting on the other side. And the two shadows fit together like a car sliding into the same lane. Something tapped once, very light, at the window. Not to be let in, to show her the rhythm. Blinkers, left, right, left.